So our next very exciting session of the day is on this very topic of Indian real estate promising sunrise sectors. So let me introduce our next panel and the eminent speakers of this panel. First of all, I introduce the moderator of this session, Mr. Alok Kumar Puri, Associate Executive Director, Head Business Development, CRM and New Initiatives, Consulting and Valuations India at CBRE. He has over 19 years of experience in this domain across different asset classes, highlighted above, in the subcontinent, and he has worked across a wide spectrum of clients, including BFSI segment, investment banks, private equity, distressed funds, developers, corporate houses, government bodies, landowners, and operators across all emerging asset classes. So a fantastic profile for our moderator of this session. Now, let me introduce the speakers in an alphabetical order, and let me first of all introduce Abhilash Pasupuleti, Senior Vice President, Asset Management at IndoSpace Capital Advisors Private Limited. Abhilash oversees performance of 3 development funds and a core vehicle with total investments of over $3 billion USD, and is responsible for driving portfolio strategy, operations, property valuations, monitoring, and optimizing asset performance. And he has more than 16 years of experience in the real estate industry. Next panel member is Adarsh Narahari, Managing Director, Primus Senior Living, and he is a pioneer in conceptualizing and creating luxury communities for seniors in India. He's also the chairman for Association of Senior Living in India. He's the managing partner for Rewild Retreats that specializes in gated communities of managed uber luxurious farmhouses, and his other businesses include land banking and aggregation, as well as development of residential and office spaces. Our next panel member, Samudragupta Talukdar, founder and CEO Relata, is visionary sales guy with an intimate understanding of sales across industries, across the international markets, and an impressive grasp of technology and its use. Samudra leads market strategy, sales, client servicing, and operations functions at Relata. Next panel member, let me introduce Shantam Mehra, founder TribeStays. He was formerly a financial analyst with Gulf Oil and sales analyst with Credico Salesforce UK, and his experience of inhabiting few of the top student accommodation and co-living spaces across Europe, along with his relevant technical understanding, has paved way for the development of India's best student accommodation brand, TribeStays. Next panel member is Shareen, Bhatia, Country Head, Business Solutions, CRM and MARCOM Embassy Services Private Limited. And Shareen comes with 2 decades of experience, and she is at Embassy responsible to explore new business opportunities, increase the geographical footprint, and establish presence across various sectors to grow the ESPL portfolio. Next panel member, let me introduce Shesh Paplikar, founder and CEO, BHIVE Group. Shesh has been instrumental to building BHIVE Workspace and BHIVE Capital. And BHIVE Workspace is India's leading managed office space provider with 27 plus centers and footprint of over 1.8 million square feet spread across Bengaluru and Mumbai. So this is our eminent panel, and let me now hand it over to the moderator of the session, Alok, all yours.
Thank you, Sapna, for a very nice and warm round of introduction for all the panelists. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the insightful panel discussion on Indian real estate promising sunrise sectors, emerging themes covering senior living, managed accommodation, flexible spaces, warehousing, and PropTech. These sectors represent not just the evolution of real estate in response to demographic shifts and lifestyle changes, but also an opportunity for innovation and sustainable development. As we delve into these promising sunrise sectors, we will explore how each one is uniquely positioned to meet specific needs within the Indian context. Senior living, for an example, is emerging as a significant sector due to India's rising aging population trends. Managed accommodation, on the other hand, appeals to the younger demographic, millennials and Gen Z, who prioritize flexibility, affordability, and community living over owning assets. Lastly, flexible spaces, which include co-working environments, are reshaping where and how we work, driven by technological changes and advancements and changing corporate cultures. Today, we have a panel of distinguished experts across these sunrise sectors to share their valuable insights and perspectives on these asset classes. The session would focus on current trends, technological changes, as well as challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. With that, I would like to throw open the panel discussion, starting with you, Adarsh. This question is divided into three parts, so I'll just highlight all the three parts together. What is the senior living market in India currently like? What factors define a successful senior living project in India today? And what kind of services are provided as part of these projects which end up being successful? Over to you, Adarsh.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So, guys, we have been given the sleep panel. So, I hope the people at the other end of the screen, are awake and we can keep them engaged. Thank you, Alok, for moderating this session. Alok, in a nutshell, if you look at the way India is getting nuclearized, right? If I asked you, what do you think is the nuclearization rate of India today, as in how many families live nuclear, what would your answer be, Alok?
I mean, in terms of the total population?
Yeah, total population.
About at least 20-25% plus?
Right. So it's at 16% today, 1/6, right?
Right.
It's an all-time low. And actually, urban India is a little higher, funnily, right? Urban India is at about 35%. So if you look at it year on year, this is changing by anywhere between 5 to 7%. And this is the large factor that drives people to look at senior living. Because we have this misconception that old people want to be taken care of. That's the first biggest misconception. The thing that an elderly values the most is their sense of independence and their sense of agency, right? And communities like ours promote that. It makes them feel like they're not dependent on anybody. That is both emotionally and financially, right? So that is the real difference. And if you have to put a demand number on that, of course, you guys came out with the report recently. JLL did a bunch of reports. So more or less, the formal demand is at 4 lakh units. And the current supply in India is about 20,000 units. So there's a lot of catching up, for people like us to do. Let me move on to the second part of your question. You were asking about what are the success factors that make a community.
That's correct.
So senior living, the first thing is senior living is not real estate. The real estate piece is probably the least important piece. The job of the house is just to make sure that a person doesn't fall down, and also to create common spaces where people can come and spend time and interact with each other, right? That is pretty much, and also to be able to manage health through sensors. I would say these are the three buckets under which the house plays a role. But the larger role starts, after the occupancy. So people who understand why folks age faster, people who are able to adapt some of the concepts of a blue zone. For example, we have a proactive healthcare plan, right? We don't wait for things to go wrong with our residents. We run a very detailed care plan wherein on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis, we do a bunch of tests around the medical care side, and we do a bunch of tests around physiotherapy. And then we have a health score, and we map people to this health score. So we keep people active longer. It's about giving quality of life. Whether you like it or not, quantity of life we are all getting. The only question that remains to be answered is, are we going to be connected to tubes and on a bed, or are we going to be jumping and walking around, right? So that's essentially what we are doing, right? So the quality of the person giving the care is the most important decision-making factor when it comes to a retirement home. The physical infrastructure stops playing a role, after a certain while. And there was another question, I think I may have missed that.
So it was on the kind of amenities and services that are being provided as part of these projects that are getting planned.
Right. So like I told you, from an amenity point of view, the common areas is actually the house. The house is the bedroom. Think of it like that. Because a senior living project is an intersection between a hotel, a hospital, and a home. So we are like 33% of each. So we take pieces of each of that, right? So a high quality medical center with a full-time doctor, nurses, physiotherapist is something that is needed. A full-time F&B play is again, very desired, because a lot of Indian women want to stop cooking, right? The guy retires and he's sending WhatsApp and watching TV. But what happens to the women of the house, right? So they want to retire from cooking and cleaning too. The other amenities would be around a games room, a large multi-purpose hall, or multiple multi-purpose halls, because people like to get together in large groups and in small groups. And that's really the heart of the community, right? Like we all, if you have read the book Guy, like purpose solves for aging, community solves for aging. So things like that. So the additional things beyond a typical residential project would be larger common spaces, a medical center, a restaurant, a kitchen. The rest of it is similar to whatever you would find in a typical development. But we'd also have a concierge team and a event management team.
Great. No, Adarsh, and in fact, just to reiterate, I think like you rightly said, given some stats, India's penetration on senior living is less than 1%.
Yeah.
When you look at more established economies like the UK at 11% or US and Australia at 6% plus, like you said, there is a huge headroom for growth, for this sector in India as times unfold. But thank you on that feedback, and we'll move over to Shesh and bring in a completely different perspective on the flexible workspace side. So Shesh, what according to you are the factors of growth for flex in India? And when I say this, I also say this at the background of the fact that India's first IPO on the flex side is on the anvil. So, there is a lot of interest which is there in the market around this. What is your view on the demand potential of this segment over the next 3 to 5 years?
Hey, hi, Alok. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be on the panel. So I think looks like interesting discussion that's going to happen, which has already begun with. I have a lot of learning from what Adarsh was saying, definitely. So in terms of flex leasing, basically the factors that is driving, I would say, I've been in this, November, in fact, we will be completing 10 years, BHIVE, and our growth has been a lot more post-pandemic. We have almost grown like 20 times after pandemic. So that's one of the things that has happened with us. I would say, but I've been seeing this from last 10 years. And if I would concisely put it, when this flexible leasing industry started, right, we keep referring to the term co-working, but I think co-working is a smaller segment of the flexible leasing industry. It has evolved into flexible leasing, right? So that's still a hangover, the co-working word. So basically 10 years back when BHIVE started, it was in a very early stage and startups were like the early adopters. So a lot of our location choices were also like around startups, because startups, of course, they had the more uncertainty, right? How much space can we take? And, there were a lot of infra issues. No, you can't really just go and open in a garage in India, right? In US, you open in a garage, but power is not going to go, internet still be working, everything is fine. It's not the case in India. So I think, startups really needed something at a low cost, something that actually works, right? So that's how the whole industry started. It has evolved a lot. And it has become much bigger, wherein I think managed office started becoming a trend. I would say 2016, 2017, 18 it started off, but pandemic really accelerated the situation. I would say what has contributed is basically like the way Uber and Ola have become also very common, right? I give this example to people. A lot of times the media industry used to have their own drivers and cars. Now they no longer do that. They tell their journalists, you can go and pick up, take your Uber, etc. Right? So the similar thought process has now come into many people. Office is an infrastructure that you need, but that is not the core business for most people. They need a place where you really see, right? You're hiring employees and you need a space where they can be productive. How far is it from their home? Commute is how much? Can I really afford as a company to give that? A lot of these factors kind of come in. And the pandemic challenged the thought process to people to rethink the whole process. Previously, people were like, "Bhai, lease chal raha hai, renew karte jate hai bas." Now it started challenging, and I think there's a first time ever that even the decision makers were challenged. Hybrid environment, how far is it from office? Home kahan pe hai? Can you give multiple locations? This completely accelerated, and larger companies have started thinking this in flexible lines. And in my view, the builders, right, who are developers, honestly, they are better off giving, see, they may want to do LRD, they may have taken loan, etc. They want to think long term, give it to somebody, get their cash flows sorted. On the other extreme, you have these companies that need those flexibility. I need to do 1 year, I need to do 3 years. I may want to move around. See, it's the operator, like an operating system that can fill that gap, right? A builder, you can't expect a developer. See, developer has to focus on their cash flows to be sorted so that they can continue their own development process. I think we have come in between really well, because the needs have become dynamic, and developer cannot do that. Only an operators can really give that flexibility, and I think that has really exploded, and the growth rate has been amazing. Like I said, BHIVE itself, in fact, we have grown like 20x since pandemic, so there is a lot of growth.
No, and what's your view, Shesh? How do you see this industry? I mean, some stats for you. I think as of 2023 end, the flex market, at least in the tier 1 cities, was broadly about 60 million. And, add to that another 5 to 6 million in the tier 2 markets, by end of 23. Where do we go from here in the next 3 to 5 is, just want to hear your thoughts around that.
See, what I really see is that the momentum is going to continue. So lucky, one thing is that all of us are lucky that Indian economy is doing well. I'm generally somebody who's quite positive of Indian economy over the next 10 years. With that assumption, the economy will continue to grow. There will be more demand for the office space in the larger sense, right? So there are two things here. See, one is when there is demand for office space, overall office space industry is growing, and we are a smaller segment within that. Flexible leasing is a smaller segment within that. I do expect that Indian economy is going to do well, and the demand for flexible leasing, it's kind of projected to grow like maybe like 35-40% annually. Like next few years, we can definitely see that. And also a lot of renewals that are coming. Somebody might have been holding a large space, 10 years lock-in. When they come for renewal, a lot of them are like, hey, they are not blindly renewing it. They are like, hey, should I really renew, or should I go from large space to smaller office and then give satellite offices in flexible leasing? That process is coming. So every renewal of traditional leasing is being questioned, whether should you do flexible or should you continue with traditional method. I think 35-40% plus growth is definitely like, it's just been happening, and I think the momentum is just there. Unless something radical goes, something goes wrong, like war or something, it should really grow.
Great. No, thanks, Shesh, on that feedback. And, with that, I'll move on to another exciting segment, the part of the managed accommodation space. So Shantam, over to you. Again, and this is related to the consumer psyche, right? So how have consumer preferences in the managed accommodation sector changed in recent years, right? Especially with evolving demographics and lifestyle shift. What adaptations and design changes are necessary to keep track of this new demand that is coming to the market? Your thoughts?
Wonderful. Firstly, thanks so much, Alok, for having us on here. I think it's an absolute wonderful panel that we have. Yourself and CBRE have been wonderful in getting us all together for this discussion on the future and where trends are moving and things like that. So yeah, getting straight to your question, I'll keep things interesting with like the trends and the way the consumer market is moving is very interesting, because we target specifically millennial and Gen Z market, right? So that is right from, I would encapsulate about an 18 to 40 age group. So all my conversation perspective is from 18 to 40. I'm sorry, I think someone has to be muted, I think, if they don't mind. Yeah, shall I continue, Alok?
Sorry, please continue, Shantam. Sorry, apologies. Yeah,
no, absolutely no worries. So my perspective is always, targeted towards the 18 to 40 age group, and that's where I think real estate is moving. Even the previous panel discussion was, it ended on this note of how the millennials and the new generations look at real estate. So the trend is definitely towards premium and luxury, right? And now it's very important for us to understand that premium and luxury is a mindset, right? It's not a physical product, what we're talking about. And the first thing when you talk about luxury, when we talk about luxury is the fact that when something is customized for you, right? So when we look at Indian real estate, as opposed to the Western and slightly more mature markets, you have segmentation for markets, right? For every single industry that you look at, whether it's your tech, your phones, your fashion, cars, automobiles, are all segmented to an age group. Right? Real estate, unfortunately, in India till today or till few years ago wasn't really segmented towards a market segment or a target market, right? Whether you're a student, whether you're a young working professional, whether you're a couple, a young family, a family with 2 or 3 kids, or then moving forward to the elder side of what even Primus is doing. All of these till today have been, catered to with your 1, 2, and 3 BHK, and you have to sort of figure out your way within this sort of segment of real estate. Now, when we talk about premium, it is firstly that real estate has to be segmented to your market demographic. What is it that your market wants? India being the youngest population in the world, there is no specific segmented real estate that has been created for this, the largest part of your population. And that's where I think co-living and student housing comes in. And again, when we talk about the premiumness or luxuriness of student housing or co-living, it is nothing to do with Italian marble or your Lotto sanitary ware or any of that sort. That's not what someone wants of this demographic. What people require is service, right? Premium service is what puts us into the premium category of co-living and things like that. So, I mean, obviously, like in the previous discussions, people were talking that houses are getting smaller and things like that. So, the kind of demographic that we're targeting, 18 to 40, they don't require a 2 BHK or a 3 BHK with a massive kitchen and things like that. If top quality food is being provided within the premises, they don't require the kitchen within the apartment. If hotel space or overnight guest rooms are being provided within the facility, they don't require the extra room and pay rent for that. So that's not what is required. What is required is the service quality. That has to be premium. And that is what people are willing to pay for. Like recently, I was seeing an article where the number one selling phone in India is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So first that it is the most premium brand that is there. Within that, it is the most premium offering. It's a 1 lakh rupees plus phone. So the fact that people are willing to pay, but if the value is derived from that and the service is provided to them. So we do things right up to the fact that there is an online portal and an online platform that we have where you can get connected with concierge services that we provide. So right from the fact that when you land, you can just update the concierge service, your cab is booked, right up to the fact that you can have a sandwich waiting for you within the room if you're landing at like a 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whatever it is. That is a premium service. That is what someone is willing to pay for. Your food, laundry, housekeeping, your design aspects are all being provided all across the spectrum. But this is what changes someone, and this is why the demographic will pay. And then again, like I think Banita was talking about in the previous panel discussion, where ROIs are not hitting the mark in residential and stuff like that. And this is where we come in and we're showing like right through the roof in terms of ROI, because people are willing to pay over and above what is already existing.
Sure. No, Shantam, I think the inherent opportunity is pretty evident, right? India has the largest number of higher education institutes globally. I think almost 10 times that of US.
Yeah.
And if you look at the student accommodation and enrollment numbers to the beds provided, this is 20% is serviced in the organized market. So I think from an opportunity perspective, even if I'm talking about just the student housing segment, the opportunity looks immense. And like you rightly said, by catering to the premium end of the market, if the ROIs and the math stacks up, I think that's a good business case for operators to really focus on. But with that, Shantam, I'll move over to another very exciting sector, and it's been has been on the talk for many years now. So Abhilash, over to you, bringing in the perspective on the warehousing side. I mean, needless to say, demand in the warehousing sector has been growing pretty consistently and has gone up like almost 2 times in the last 5-6 years. Now, the question that people have is, will this growth momentum stay? What will be the drivers for demand from here on? So that's just the perspective we wanted to ask you, Abhilash. Over to you.
Hello, and it's great to be a part of the panel. It's also expanding the different types. So,
Sorry,
so it's a great experience to be a part of it.
Yeah. Abhilash, your voice is breaking.
Okay.
I think we can move on to the next speaker, and we'll ask Abhilash to
We'll come
join
back.
once
Yeah,
again.
we'll come back to Abhilash. Samruddha, again, from your perspective, especially on the PropTech side, we just wanted to understand what are the primary challenges which are faced by the real estate developers in India's emerging markets, and how can that be addressed effectively? Your thoughts.
Thanks, Alok, and the Realty Plus team for having us here. It's looks like an amazing panel. Now, let me just focus on the real estate segment. This industry and India market size is estimated at USD $330 billion in the year 2024 and is expected to reach $1.04 trillion by, say, 2029, which is growing at a CAGR of 25.6 odd percent. And this is being forecasted till 2029, and it's growing faster than ever. Now, reality being a promoter-driven ecosystem, there are different challenges across the pyramids. So today, when I see a category A plus developer from Mumbai or Bangalore are facing different challenges compared to a growing real estate developer from Guwahati, facing different challenges. And these challenges are common across the pyramid, whether it is India, Dubai, or Dhaka. Now, the best example, let's talk about the pandemic. The whole globe, realty ecosystem came to halt, and the simple reason is like other industries, we never had a business continuity plan. So when I see across the pyramid, I will definitely define the challenges for the top of the developers, for the mid of the developers, and for the pyramid of the developers. Now, first, there is a common challenge across the group, and that is simple. So first is how to increase sales, how to collect the money faster. We all know financial institutions makes the most of the money in the whole real estate ecosystem. Now, so in this ecosystem, there are 4 Bs: the builder, the broker, and the banker. And all of them earns when a buyer ends up buying the property. And we have never focused a technology offering, which is a buyer optimized journey based solution, or in short, a customer experience solution. One more element I would like to bring today, the top of the pyramid, the biggest of the developers, is talking about different challenges, like with leads and conversions, productivity of teams, better customer experiences, services, data sets, growth, and scalability, and the brand and its surrounding systems, and whatever they want to build over it. And for a matter of fact, they use different technology. Same with the moment I come to the mid of the pyramid, the mid of the pyramid is focusing on towards sustainability and with an approach and a goal to become a large developer who can drive huge volume, also wanted to cut cost at the different segments. And when I see the bottom of the pyramid, now this is the one guy who rarely uses technology. WhatsApps and Excels are the tools which they have been playing a vital role in their lifestyle. And is nowhere aware of the latest trends and is trusting his conventional methods of doing businesses with pen and paper. Now, all these 3 guys, the solution is very simple and it's not very difficult. In last 1 decade, if you see, most of the developers at the top and the middle of the pyramid have invested in people and engaged in different processes. Some of them are proven and some are not. And they have managed to onboard some of different technologies. Well, the challenge today is that you need to have a good triangle between people, process, and technology. And some of the other way, when as Relata, we are going across different developers from north to south to east to west, we found that this triangle is not an equilateral one. So that's where the first focus has to come. So what we propose that the approaching and solving the problem statement is that you need to map your processes with right technology tools and deploy a hand-holding process to instill a confidence across the teams that will help team players to deliver better than ever. So in short, if I have to talk about it today, we need to focus on aligning our business goals with a process which is technologically driven and the people can easily adopt and grow along with it. That's the mantra I suppose we all need to follow at this point of time.
Fair, Samruddha. I think that point really underscores the growing need for technological intervention in the processes we are all, incorporating in times to come. But Shareen, moving on to you, and purely, I think you'll help us tie in the perspectives because I believe Embassy is already pretty active on the alternates theme. So you'll give us a larger perspective especially around sustainability. I mean, we would like to hear what are some of the best practices that real estate developers today can adopt to ensure environmental friendly and sustainable developments across India's sunrise sectors. So over to you. Shareen, you're on mute. Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Alok. It's indeed a pleasure being part of this panel discussion. When we talk sustainability, we are talking about future. And climate change risk is real and it is at the backyard. So definitely we should be talking more on sustainability. The first initiative what we can think about is encouraging green building certification. This is becoming the need of our, and we know going forward, it will be mandate to have green building certification with the proper data proofs for it. So when we think about that, when we encourage green building certification, we also help in ensuring that the proper sustainable practices are adhered to. So in our embassy, we take care of all the initiatives like green energy, by energy consumptions practices. Green energy, we have a 200 megawatt solar plant in Bellary next to Bangalore, where we provide green energy to our plants, our IT parks. And then we also can look at waste management in terms of segregation, recycling, and water conservation. So when we talk about water conservation, specifically we should think about in landscaping, where we can use xeriscaping, which will help in reducing water consumption. Apart from this, we are practicing many practices like procurement sustainability and encouraging people to travel, in public transport, etc. But one thing which I would like to emphasize here is how do we get the occupiers and the employees in the building to be part of this program? It cannot be a part of only a sustainability department doing it or the maintenance team who's doing it. We need to encourage that there is a complete participation from each and every occupier or employee. So what we've done in embassy is we've created a committee where different volunteers from different department volunteer in this committee. And then we have a weekly meeting where we have an ideation or where we have innovation solutioning for sustainable practices. We implement them and then we monitor them. Example is like in our front office, we have a monitor which monitors day-to-day indoor air quality. And we see to it that it is maintained at the right level. Most important is food wastage, which we see in our cafeterias or canteens. Humongous food wastage. So how do we encourage people for behavioral aspects in terms of reducing food wastage? So these are certain things which we have taken at that organizational level. But if you look at our country and thinking about the diverse aspect of landscape and urban environment, how do we encourage sustainability practice from the real estate point of view? So maybe we should look at incorporating architectural techniques or materials which is specific to the different regions which we have in the country. So this will not only encourage, the cultural value, but it will also help in sustainable activities where we're utilizing the available resources which is present in that area. Next, what we can look at, maybe looking at, passive cooling system, wherein we should look at, proper orientation of buildings and then use natural ventilation and use materials which have, heat reflecting materials, which will help in reducing the usage of, the ACs or air conditions, which will thereupon reduce the savings on energy. Also, what we can look at is urban environment or urban gardens, what we talk about, like the vertical gardens or rooftop. This will definitely help us in increasing the air quality. But not only that, it can also help us combat the urban heat effect which we are having in densely populated cities like Delhi or Mumbai. So this will help us in that. We as an organizational level, we are talking on this. I mean, a few people are involved, but how do we get the entire country involved in this? So what we should do is maybe have sustainable, elements in these affordable housing projects so that people are exposed to there's a wide range of population which is exposed to these activities and they are educated and they know we need to go this way. We from real estate industry, maybe we should advocate and support, incentivizing these practices, green building projects, where in terms of maybe having, better tax systems or better approval process. So this sustainability activity is not definitely related to a sector or to a society. It is more related to where the government gets involved, NGO gets involved, we as real estate sector people get involved, and other industries get involved. Then this is the only way where we can go forward. We are doing a lot in embassy. We are practicing most. We've come a long way in terms of sustainable activity, and we look forward to doing more in this region.
Great. No, thank you, Shareen. I think very insightful feedback there, and some food for thought for all of us. I'll try and pull in Abhilash back. Abhilash, if you have better connectivity now, and my question was around the demand point. So over to you.
Yeah, sorry for that. I hope you guys can hear me now.
Absolutely. Fine. Please go ahead.
All right. So from a demand perspective, you're absolutely right. Demand's been pretty strong, particularly in the last 2 to 3 years. I think Shesh touched upon it, on his view about India and where India is poised in terms of economic growth. The industrial warehousing sector is a direct beneficiary of economic growth like any other sector in the country is. So we've seen that play out. So in terms of actual demand drivers, I would say at the top right now is manufacturing sector, which is great because we went through a period of about 4 or 5 years where manufacturing activity was very muted. So it was really just e-commerce requirements that were driving demand. But now manufacturing is significantly rebounded, and it's rebounded across various markets. So that's something that's been very pleasing. We expect that to continue to grow. India, like everybody else touched on, my belief is it's just at the beginning of a great growth story. So the next 10 to 15 years, you should see a lot of this become very, very standard manufacturing to continue to move demand. The other important demand driver is obviously e-commerce. There's been a lot of press recently in the last 12 months, particularly about e-commerce requirements slowing down, etc. All of that is true. But also what you have to bear in mind is when you look at, I was just looking at some data during the last week, which said online shopping in India is still at about 5% of total retail. Now, you combine that with, you look at that in context of where other economies are. There in China is as high as 31, 32%, but even countries like Brazil, etc., are at about 16 to 17%. So at a minimum, you're thinking of e-commerce demand maybe tripling to quadrupling in the next 3 to 4 years. So we think it's a matter of time before that demand driver kicks back in. So that should be a pretty strong story from a demand perspective. And the third thing is the third-party logistics. So you're seeing more and more companies accelerated primarily by COVID, where every brick and mortar retail also has a e-commerce arm, and B, tying up with companies to really transport their goods to each and everyone's houses. So we're seeing all of those three as key demand drivers that will continue to drive the sector. On the manufacturing sector, particularly, it's not just automotive anymore. It's automotive is strong, so is electronics, so is so many other manufacturing activities that are coming up. So I'm quite bullish about where the demand is going to be in the next near to medium term.
No, sounds good, Abhilash. In fact, last year we came on the back of one of the most record years of leasing and warehousing, about 38 million square feet of demand, which is one of the peak years that the sector has seen. And given the strong infrastructure fillip being given by the government, I think, like you said, that's also a big catalyst with several state governments acting, especially specific policies towards this. I think the sector is poised for growth ahead. But thanks on that feedback, Abhilash, and I'll move over back to Adarsh and pull him onto an interesting question. So Adarsh, please share your views on intergenerational communities and how do you really place them in the overall housing ecosystem? I think it'll be good to understand where does what is the fitment like? So over to you.
Okay. So, we started off in Bangalore, Alok, and then we launched Chennai, Pune, Bombay, and Calcutta. And as we moved from the south of India towards the north of India, the perception that we are doing a Vridhashram kind of increased. So, we are entrepreneurs and business people. We'll have to find, ways to solve problems. And one very natural thing that came by is that we can just plug ourselves into larger projects, right? Instead of doing standalone senior living, what we have now started to do is we put 1 or 2 towers within a cluster of towers where, the parents and in-laws can live in these senior living towers, the children and the grandchildren live in the rest of the project. And we believe that this is the way that New India likes to live, not necessarily under the same roof, but near each other, because it is ingrained in our culture to take care of our parents. But the new India may not want to live under the same roof. We have also seen that the women of the house are more concerned about their parents than the men of the house, and this is based on data about who reaches out to my operations team, right? So we have seen that when a couple comes into our office and we talk to the lady of the house, she prefers to pick up something with us so her parents can move in next door. So what this does is it promotes independence of every generation. It gives each person, their friend circle. And whatever amenities we are giving in senior living, we have opened out to the rest of the community. So if somebody's cook doesn't show up, maid doesn't show up, so the amenities become beyond a clubhouse. So it could be cleaning services, it could be food, it could be concierge. And, this has been, it's been great for us. And we're able to differentiate ourselves and get a premium only because of trying to make this home purchase an emotional decision as opposed to a logical decision.
Oh, great. No, thanks, Adarsh. Pull in, Shesh. A typical question that people would ask, and I think you were trying to part answer it in your first question, is how is flex different from the conventional leasing that we see? And a lot of talk around amenitization and technology playing a big role in creating a differentiated product offering for the operators. So how is that really creating an impact and helping take up the demand? So some thoughts there, Shesh.
Yeah, so look, yes, I was trying to address some part of it. So I think compared to the traditional leasing, like I said, see, developers would come with a certain thought process. While I think developers have evolved a lot to think about the end customer in many places we see, right? How tech parks have evolved. Yeah, even residential places, etc. Right? Overall experience, and a lot of these things have been thought through, but eventually, leasing is, I think, the B2B leasing, right? It's a very complex process. The way the requirements are, how the whole lead comes in to, would I say today? In fact, I was talking to somebody who's like, chairs, workstations, and internet. Hamara standard, we'll put it up. You do the other part. The amount of requirements that come in is very, very different, and developers are not geared for it, and rightly so. I think I would say being a developer, what you need to really, acquiring land, dealing with the landowner. If you're doing a JV, then how do you deal with government? How do you manage your bank finances, etc. There are just way too many things for them to already handle, right? Along with that, developing this whole capability to handle the end-to-end real requirement of that flexible leasing, because there is fit outs and various other aspects of experience, internet, etc. is involved. I think that's why the differentiation is very, very clear. Even some developers, if you want to get into flexible leasing, they start a separate company with its own CEO, COO, etc. to do it, right? That's why it is definitely something very different, and it has its own complexities in that sense. And amenitization, yes, I think this is something it's generally happening across. Right, people's even for that matter, co-living or even for senior living, etc. Right, amenities are becoming very important. That is because when you look at the end user today, they value their time and experience a lot. What is the quality that we are getting, right? It's quantity of life versus quality of life in that sense, right? I think it's exactly same thing. When you are in your office, as an end, if I'm an employer, I want my employees to be happy. They want to, ultimately they have to be productive, right? I would want them to spend more time at office. I want them to not quit the job. I mean, if whatever best I can do to keep them longer. And then today, if you really see, salaries are shooting up, right? Manpower cost is so high. If I'm anyway spending so much on the manpower, I may as well spend to make them productive and be happy, right? I may as well give them the better laptop. I think that is the thought process. That's why the amenities become very important.
Very important.
right? And I would say I think Google and I think Silicon Valley pioneered it a bit. Early 2000s, I used to read in newspaper, Google has this kind of office, Google has that kind of office. It was something out of the world to read about that. Right today, of course, it's been 20 years since I've been reading it. I think it's kind of slowly trickling down, and you can see that happening for everybody, right? Do you want gym in the office? These kind of things are pretty much becoming a lot more common, and across, be it senior living, be it be it hotels, also the expectation, I think across the board, be it buying a residential apartment also, right? I think that has happened, and I think we are no different. The ones who are willing to give that better experience and quality, I think I think it's very important that organized players are trying to play on experience rather than price. Just price, there are enough moment shops in India across the sector who can just beat on price. They may have escape from tax, they may have their own loopholes. All of us here, I think we have to generally build on quality, most of
Correct.
us. I think
That's why they're using this term called hotelization of spaces, right? So that's where amenities are coming in, very, very important part of each and every sector that we see. But great, Shesh. I think that's great feedback. I'll pull in Shantam here, and a very important question for the senior housing, for the student housing sector is: are we going to see increased supply of purpose-built inventory, or will the market continue to expand on conversions? So that was one. And what are the different models of operations there, Shantam, and which is the most preferred one? If you could share your thoughts.
Absolutely. And first and foremost, I'm so sorry for dropping off the call. There was this cloud burst in Pune, so we had connectivity issues, and we're finally, I think, beating the heat in Pune. So I think that's a big plus. But yeah, I think first and foremost, I'll sort of like on the build to suit and purpose built conversation. I'll start off with slightly what we do as Tribe, right? So specifically for us is that student housing is one vertical that we manage. So student housing, we typically target the 6 month to 12 month customer, right? With that, we have the other vertical of co-living where we target working professionals. That's typically the 1 month to 6 month clientele that we target. And we have a third vertical, which is short stays, or more or less like the hotel stays, which works about 1 day to 1 month. So that's the three sort of TGs that we target. It's all between 18 to 40. So it's all designed, branded, and the social media and everything works with that in mind. And this is where I think purpose built and built to suit fits in really, really well. Because end of the day, any business that anyone's doing, whether you're a landlord or operator or whoever you are, is for earning, right? So maximum earning, and again, in the previous panel discussion, I'll bring that point again, is that the kind of expected ROI that the West sees with residential or things like that, that is way more possible when you do a purpose-built premises, right? So the rooms have to be designed in a certain way. The amenities, again, on this panel discussion as well, there's been so much talk about quality and experience. So that again has to be designed, and there's a mindset that comes with it, right? And that is when the consumer will pay. When there is some value addition to their livelihood, whether it's co-working or it's elderly living or anything of that sort, or it's co-living as we do it. When there is value addition to someone's life, that is when someone is willing to pay in terms of experience. And that has to be designed from ground up. And that's when you see maximum efficiency in the number of, in our case, the number of rooms that someone can have. And that's where the landlord in turn. So, I mean, in terms of numbers, Resi, we are seeing upwards of 6% returns to landlords. In commercial, we're crossing 10.5% in terms of returns. And again, that is because we have right from short stay up to 12-month consumers. Right? And the places and the amenities are designed in a certain way. And that is way more possible in a purpose built. And I think that's where the developer lobby is also now moving towards this mindset where earning per square foot is much more in a purpose built project as compared to anything that is ready available. And again, with this, it also ties in the other aspect of the kind of business models that are present in this, right? So obviously, till date, we've been seeing in the operator industry a fixed rent. You pay a deposit, you put in your capex as an operator, and you put in some deposit, and you come on a fixed rent sort of a model. But we've done away with that because what we see is that it's very, very tough for an operator managing their spaces across geolocations, right? Occupancy is a very, very big point that comes in over here. when they have to invest in capex as well as have fixed rent liability on their balance sheet, it's very, very tough for someone to manage that across thousands of number of beds and multiple properties and stuff. But the other side of the coin is an industry that has thrived across decades is the hospitality industry and the hotel industry, right? And they do it across universal landscapes and across the world and global level, like brands like Marriott and Holiday Inn and all of these guys. So how is that they've been able to manage an operator, even end of the day when they're operators, right? So the way they're able to manage is the operator model, where it's a revenue share, where you've partnered with the developer, right?
Correct.
And that is where we've done very, very large projects. It's more sustainable, and also because the developer is hedging the risk with the operator, we are much obliged to let them earn more in that space. And that's where we are seeing they're also crossing the 6-7% in resi, they're crossing the 10.5% in commercial, because we're letting them have that upside in earnings. So we're doing about 3 lakh square foot projects in Pune, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. And this is where I think someone like CBRE and Shesh as well with BHIVE. So the kind of projects we're doing and why we call it premium is because in the same project, we have co-living, right? We have co-working on the top. So that there's a co-working brand that comes in. We don't manage any co-working, but a co-working brand comes into the same facility. You have a high street and F&B at the bottom. So the entire ecosystem that a consumer is open to, right? Right from his workspace to meeting rooms to his living experience to F&B and entertainment is within a 2-minute walk within the same facility. That is what is premium, and that is what someone pays for. So I think that's where it all ties in.
Great, bro. Great feedback, Shantam. Moving to you, Abhilash, and I think a very pertinent question for the logistics sector, which everyone's asking is, how's the unit economics stacking up in this current time? Are the rents going up in line with rising land costs? So what does one need to do to ensure the returns are stable? So over to you, Abhilash.
Yeah, I mean, that's $1 million question, isn't it? What do you need to do to ensure the returns stay intact? But yeah, I mean, land prices have really escalated significantly. That's primarily been on a couple of things. I mean, land acquisition in India is not easy, particularly for this sector, because you need at a minimum anywhere between 40 to 60 acres of land to be aggregated.
Could I request everyone else to kindly mute, please? Akash and Anup, if you guys can put yourself on mute, please. Sorry,
Yeah.
Back to you,
No
Abhilash.
worries. Yeah. So I was saying that land aggregation is a huge challenge. What that means is two things. One is if you have the land bank with you, then obviously you start at a very significant competitive advantage. The other thing is whatever land is available, the number of people chasing that land is very, very high. So obviously that pushes land prices to a point where things start becoming stretched from a development economics perspective. Also, particularly for this sector, unlike commercial and the other established like retail, commercial, residential, established real estate asset classes, everybody has to get into development because there is no real ready stock, institutional quality ready stock that's available to just come in and acquire, which is why you see every fund there is establishing a development platform. So that continues to put a pressure in terms of land prices are going up. Rents have increased, so that's been great to see, particularly in the last 2 years, following a period of almost 3 to 4 years where rents were pretty flat and just tracking to inflation or slightly below inflation. So now we are finally seeing rent growth kick back in. This time it seems like it's a lot more permanent because I just spoke about where the demand is at a short while ago. So demand seems to be pretty much aligned.
Right.
Supply constraints are there. Rents typically tend to lag increase in land costs. So hopefully the trajectory continues at least for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and then ultimately everything tracks to inflation. Now, the second part of your question is interesting. How do you, in this environment, ensure that you're able to generate value and generate returns? So I think a couple of things are very important. One is you need to have patient capital. You need to have the ability to hold on to these assets for much longer than what we used to underwrite previously, where you would typically look at uh, getting the land, getting approvals, developing, leasing, and then exiting. That you need to be a little more uh, patient with respect to having slightly longer holding periods, because like with any other sector, there is a cycle at which the rents will be poised and they will grow significantly, and you should be able to cash in on that. And more importantly, you have to be very, very efficient from an operations perspective. There are obviously various things that you can't control and are market driven, but there are the what you can control, which is control the controllables, whether it's execution, whether it is ensuring that you're efficient in operations, looking at small things, not really expensive things, but small things where you can build customer loyalty. You ensure that your customers are not then haggling for like a 1 rupee, 2 rupee margin over a competitor that's coming up next door. That is super important. And yeah, I think, like I said, you just control the controllables, wait for the cycle to turn, because this will turn. Logically, it should get to a point where rents go up, and then that's how the returns will work.
No, great. No, I think Abhilash, you've put it very, very correctly. You touched upon a very important thing on efficiency, and I think that also leads me to my next question to Samruddha, because tech is the direct influencer on efficiency. So, Samruddha, if I could pull you in, how is the integration of tech transforming the traditional real estate sectors in India, particularly across project management and customer engagement? Some of it you had touched in your previous question, but if you could elaborate.
Yeah, great, Alok. This is a fantastic question. So at Relata, we have been working for the last 4 years across north to south, whether it is DLF, Embassy, Hiranandani's, Brigades, and many more, and including the smaller developers also. And when we see technology played a very vital role. Now, let me divide the whole era into two parts, or rather, I would say that the whole ecosystem into two eras. One is pre-pandemic, and the second being the post-pandemic. Nothing against anybody, but pandemic has made a lot of real estate players to start using technology in first place. That is the good thing, you know. And the best segment which has picked up a lot could be the pre-sale CRM software, some basic CRPs, and maybe some virtual tours. Right now, however, we need to relook towards the sector. The realty sector in India is contributing 13% towards the GDP of the country, and we are all talking about that. We would be going towards $1 trillion economy. Now, today, when we see and when we go, being one among the last entrant in the ecosystem, where we have different tools ranging from extended reality, VR, AI, and all of those, I see that the usage of technology towards a total turnover is less than 0.25%. In smaller cases, it's 0.15% is where you spend on technology, and in larger, bigger clients, they use spent across like 0.25%. Whereas the global pundits believe if India has to achieve $1 trillion realty market, then we need to increase our technology investment to upwards of 1% for better growth and scale. Now, let's understand a very simple thing, okay? Reality is the most expensive investment anyone does, whether it is Mukesh Ambani or a blue-collar worker. And as an ecosystem, we'll see people born after 2000 will soon influence the buying process, and we call them Gen Zs. And they are always glued with their mobile devices. They will be glued with different technology systems. So when we see today across the ecosystem to increase productivity, we get the best out of the team to increase conversions. We talk about reaching to different consumers at different segments, whether it is CPL, CPQL, cost of acquiring customer, all those terminologies today end up coming with a technology usage, where we call about two terminologies, one being the growth, second being the scale. Now, if we have to grow and scale our businesses, we need to think about how we integrate all of these systems. So today, if a realty player wants to grow and scale, they need to have some productive system towards the customer engagement. And all of this needs to be integrated. For example, when we go and we look forward to implement a complete digital transformation for a player, for example, House of Hiranandani, how we are doing. So it starts with the very first thing, how you have the basic visualization and engagement. Because people would like to understand and see the product you are selling, whether it is the elevation, whether it is the balcony views or whatever it is. Most of the people buy because of the neighborhood and the location. So today, if I'm being at Pune, if I have to think about buying a property, I might go to Baner or I might go to Baughan or wherever it is. But that's from where the thought process starts. And then you start scouting for the product. Then when you are reaching to the site after all segments of discussions with the pre-sales and telecallers and brokers, you expect an amazing on-site management. With the latest technology trends like Swiggy, Zomato's coming, convenience and easiness is something what everybody focuses.
Yeah.
And most importantly, after that, you want to drive a better payments and inventory management system. So today we have seen a lot of cancellation happening because you don't have that proper ecosystem into place where the payments and inventories are being driven properly. Most importantly, we all talk about that this is the number of units we'll be selling at this particular month. And all of this happens based on experience or somebody talking to us in a very good manner. But there is no rationale behind the forecast. So as an organization, we need to focus on something called behavioral and business analytics. And while we all do all of those till booking, we call it as a customer journey management. And this is something which we all need to focus. As an organization, everybody invests in CRM and ERPs, but the trends are changing. You need to understand the buyer journey needs to be optimized. And that's where a customer experience platform has to come into the place. And then the post-sale suite and all of those things can come into the picture. And most importantly, if you see, all these softwares are getting paid by a promoter who writes a check, but the downline users, whether it is a GRE or a closing manager or a sourcing manager. Now, all of them, this systems I have spoken about, needs to work seamlessly. And we need to have a coupled integrations amongst all softwares. And this software should be working under one interface. Why should I have multiple interfaces to go and navigate? So we should not expect users to use different tools and give them one single integrated interface, which can improve their operations and productivity.
Absolutely.
And that's all what seamless integration means all about.
It can be. No, thanks, Samruddha. And in fact, I know we are at the top of the hour, Sapna, but allow me to just, quickly take a one-line response and put Shareen in.
I think, Alok, we need to just close it. And I think what we kind of from this session, I think what was unique about this session is to get all the perspectives about so many different sectors from the experts. And Alok, you're getting best out of everyone, whether it is co-working or sustainability, as Shareen mentioned, or prop tech and senior living, warehousing, student housing for various segments of the population, and this is where the gap has been, and all these people are addressing those gaps. So Alok, quickly, I want your views now. How do you summarize, how these promising new sectors are going to, see the future growth you see in these sectors?
See, like I mentioned, I think we spoke about senior living. India's penetration rate is very, very low compared to global peers. And, as per projections, we are seeing India to be one of the fastest growing regions globally, to achieve almost a 17% throughput on the senior living, which places it as a huge market for a product like this. Cut across to flex, we've already seen, the sector more than double in the last 5 to 6 years. The growth trajectory continues to stay buoyant, with the market fundamentals remaining strong and occupiers looking to evaluate flex strategies in their portfolio. Moving to warehousing, again, like Abhilash summarized, we have seen a period of growth, and with the core fundamentals on manufacturing, infrastructure story, development remaining intact, we are again expected to see a strong period of growth over the next 5 to 10 years in logistics, as well as a sector. So I'll summarize by saying, I think we are in good times. All the alternate asset classes have some strong, demand drivers which are backing them. And, we are heading into a space where we, over the next 5 years, won't call them really as emerging sectors, but as established asset classes. I'll hand it over back to you, Shantam.
That's correct. From youngest of population and the senior population that we are seeing, and demand for all this e-commerce and ESG, I think that is where we are headed for. Thank you everyone for being here. I think 1 hour was so less to know about so much what is happening in these sectors. But thank you so much for being here with us and talking about it. At least we get to know what's happening and getting it right from the experts. So thank you so much. Thank you, Alok. Thank you, Shesh, Samudragupta, Adarsh for being here with us, Abhilash for being part of this panel, Shantam and Shareen for being here and talking about these aspects. Thank you so much.
Thank you all to the panelists as well. Thank you.